On this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I make my fingerless gloves on my 48 needle knitting machine in the tube. First, you want to yarn on with waste yarn, and I do about 7 rows. Next, for your project yarn, you want to add that, and you want to make sure I have a long tail because that's going to be important when we put our glove together. I'm doing 50 rows for this glove, but you can also do 40 or 30 if you want to do a shorter glove. And then you're going to end the project with another 7 rows of waste yarn. And so now we're going to close our tube and we're going to count up to 24 stitches because there's 48 needles. We want to do 24 stitches on each side of our tube, and this is so we close the tube evenly. I like to have the ends of the waste yarn facing down towards me and then start at the other end to close the tube. So now we have 24 on each side, so we know that our project is even. And then you're going to take your crochet hook and do a slip stitch to close it together. So we're going to just put both loops on the hook, and then you're going to pull one down through the other, and then go the opposite side and pull down. Pick up a stitch, pull down. And you're going to do this back and forth all the way down your project until the tube is closed. So this is why it's really important when you're going to use a waste yarn that it's a very high contrasting color so you can see the stitches that you want to pick up on your project. Because if you miss closing a stitch, it will unravel your project if you don't lock it in place. So at the very bottom, this is where you want to be careful that you make sure you have picked up all those stitches. This is where I always seem to miss one and I have to go back and fix it. So when you get to the very end, you can just use the end of your project yarn to pull it through, to lock it in place. And either on this side of the tube or the other side of the tube, you want to make sure your project end yarn is quite long because you're going to use that to sew up your glove. Now we're on to the other side of our tube and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure there's 24 stitches on either side so they're even, and then slip stitch them down to close up the tube. And here's just a close-up of that slip stitch again. And again, this is to make it so it's a thicker glove. It's going to be double layered. So it's a nice warm glove too that you can make on this. And when you're slip stitching it together, just take your time to make sure you don't miss any stitches. I am making this video to be the 10 minutes that TikTok allows you to make. If you would like this video slowed down a little bit more and I could put it in multiple parts, I can do that as well. If that's what you would like, just let me know in the comment section. So again, when we get down to our very end, just make sure you pull and kind of look into that waste yarn to make sure you don't miss any of the stitches because they can kind of hide in there. And you're going to see on this side of the project, I left a longer working yarn on the end of my project for the end yarn, and this end yarn is what we're going to use to close and make another round for the glove. So you're going to see there's one stitch that was hiding in there that I almost missed, but I caught it. So I got him locked, and then I'm going to use the end of the working yarn to pull all the way through to lock it in place. And so now we're going to remove the waste yarn because it's locked in place. And this side was the second waste yarn that I did, where you just turn it off of your machine. And so it's not locked in the place. So when you get that outer end yarn of the waste yarn, you pull it, it's just going to unravel. Super easy and simple. And I have a tutorial showing this in real time as well on my feed. And then I knot the end yarn in place so it doesn't come undone. And then we're going to remove the other waste yarn. And this was the yarn on waste yarn. So it is locked in place. So you want to find that outer end piece of the waste yarn and pull on the stitches to where it starts to move, and you can just pull it out. And you're going to have to do this one time around since it's locked in place, and you want to feed it through. Because if you don't do this and just start pulling on random stitches, then it'll knot and you'll have to cut it out of your project. Again, I show this in real time in the tutorial I just put up, so you can see this as well. Once you get it unlocked one around, then it just pulls right out. So now that the waist yarns are done, you're gonna make it go lengthwise and you're gonna fold it in half, and we're gonna sew up that side where the two have come together. So I'm gonna take my end yarn and put it on a sewing needle, and we're going to do a blind, what I call a blind stitch. If it's called something else, let me know in the comments. Up the side to close it for the glove. And you're going to see, I will do a close-up, and it's right in the little V section of the stitches where they come together is where I'm picking it up the stitch with my needle. So right in there, you see that there's kind of like a hidden piece of the yarn in between the V, right there. So there's the little V part of the stitch, and I go right in between where that V comes together, and you pick up this little piece of yarn that's in there and close it together, and you just go back and forth side to side. And as you work up your project, you're going to see that it kind of disappears, and that's how you kind of know if you're picking up the right stitch. If you can see where you're closing, like you can see your yarn that you're working with, you haven't picked up the right little stitch. So it's taken me a little bit of time just to kind of play with it. And even when I got working up this project, I started picking up the wrong side of the stitch, so you started to see my sewing yarn. So I had to take it out and redo a few inches. But as you see, as we kind of work up the project, I'll slow it down again, and it kind of just looks seamless where they come together, and you can't tell where I've stitched it closed using this method. So as we work up, when it starts getting closer to the thumb area, you'll see I'll like put it on my hand to see if I want to go up more, because we're going to make the hole for there. And here's where I'm kind of looking to see, does it look seamless? Am I doing the stitches right? And right here, you can't really tell where I've been sewing because where I've picked it up. And so if you can see that sewing yarn, then I just take them out and you can redo. But we're just picking up that middle piece in the V on both sides. And like I said, this gloves take longer than even making hats. So if you would like this video slowing down in multiple sections, we can do that as well, and I can post them. So you can just see I'm kind of following that line to know where to put my stitch to make it look seamless, where you can't tell where I stitched it together. So now we're getting close enough. I'm seeing where I want my thumb hole. So I put it on, I wanted to go up a few more stitches. And then I put it on, and that's where I like it. I want it closed about right there. So now I just put my needle through again that V, and I'm going up about 6 stitches. So I'm going to count those. And I just put my yarn up and through, and I counted 6. So you're just like skipping those 6 stitches. And then you're just going to go over to the other side, count 6 stitches up so you're even. 3, 4, 5, 6, right there. And you're going to pick up that yarn again, that same spot in the middle of the V, to close your thumb hole. And then you just continue working your stitches up till you get to the top. And then once you get the top, you close the stitch around, and then I'll do a little knot to secure it. And then here I'm just making sure I'm picking up the right stitches. And making sure that's where I like my thumb, and I did. So now I'm going to finish closing it. So here's at the top. I just work it one more round, just kind of in that top stitch to wherever I think it kind of hides the best to close the 2 sides together. And I just make sure I like it before I knot it. And now that I do, now there's 2 end yarns up at the top. And I knot them, and then I just feed them through to the top of the thumb hole, and I do another knot, and then I just feed them down through the stitches again in between the 2 layers to hide the yarn and cut off the excess. And now your one glove is complete, and we just have to make the second one. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.